Welcome to Grandma's Tales. Find your most comfortable position, my little one. Pull your blankets up high, right under your chin, and feel how warm and safe you are. Tonight, we are going on a journey to a castle made of silver stone, where the moonlight rests on the windows like a soft silk ribbon. We are going to hear the story of a prince, a princess, and a very small, very magical green pea. This is a story about how being gentle and kind is a true sign of royalty. Close your eyes now. Take a deep, slow breath. Let the stars watch over you as we begin. Once upon a time, in a kingdom where the mountains were topped with white lace clouds, and the rivers hummed a quiet lullaby to the stones, lived a young prince. He was a kind boy, with eyes the colour of the deep sea, and a heart that was always looking for someone to share his dreams with. He lived in a magnificent castle with his father, the king, and his mother, the queen. The castle was a place of great beauty, filled with long hallways where the floors were made of polished oak, and the walls were hung with tapestries of golden thread. But even with all this beauty, the prince felt a little bit lonely. He wanted to find a real princess to marry, someone who was as gentle and true as the morning dew. So, the prince decided to travel the whole world over to find her. He packed a small bag with fresh bread and honey cakes, put on his travelling cloak of deep forest green, and set out on his horse. He travelled through dark, ancient forests where the trees whispered secrets in the wind. He crossed vast, golden deserts where the sand looked like ripples of silk. He visited many kingdoms, large and small, and he met many princesses. Some were very beautiful, wearing crowns of diamonds. Some were very clever, speaking many different languages. Some were very brave, riding horses as fast as the wind. But in each case, there was something that didn't feel quite right. He wasn't sure what it was, but his heart didn't feel the click of a true connection. He wanted a real princess, someone whose spirit was as delicate as a flower and as bright as a star. After many months of searching, the prince returned home to his castle, feeling very sad and tired. He sat by the large stone fireplace and watched the embers glow, wondering if he would ever find the friend he was looking for. One night, a fearful storm blew up over the kingdom. The sky turned a deep velvet purple, and the clouds were heavy with the scent of rain. It was a night when the wind howled around the castle towers like a lonely wolf, and the lightning flashed across the sky, showing the jagged edges of the mountains. Crack! The thunder rolled over the roof, making the heavy silver plates in the kitchen rattle. The rain poured down in buckets, washing over the castle walls and turning the garden paths into rushing rivers of water. It was a night to stay inside, close to the fire, with a cup of warm milk and a soft book. The king and queen sat in the great hall, listening to the rain drumming against the stained glass windows. Suddenly, a loud knocking was heard at the castle gate. Knock, knock, knock. It was a quiet sound at first, almost hidden by the roar of the wind, but it was steady and persistent. The king, being a very kind and curious man, stood up from his golden throne. He took a heavy iron key from his belt and walked down the long, echoing hallway to the front doors. As he pulled back the heavy oak bolts, the wind rushed in, bringing with it the smell of wet earth and cold rain. Standing there, right in the middle of the storm, was a girl. Good heavens, what a sight she was! The water ran down from her hair and her clothes. It ran in from the toes of her shoes and out at the heels. Her hair, which was the colour of spun honey, was matted and wet, sticking to her pale cheeks. Her dress, once a beautiful silk of lavender blue, was soaked through and clung to her small frame. She was shivering so hard that her teeth made a tiny clicking sound. The king looked at her with great pity. "Who are you, my child?" he asked softly. And the girl looked up, her eyes bright even in the dark, and she replied, "I am a real princess." The king led the girl inside, where the warmth of the castle began to dry her skin. The queen came to meet them, wrapping the girl in a thick white towel made of the softest cotton. She looked at the girl's gentle face and her tired eyes. A real princess, the queen thought to herself. Well, we shall soon find that out. But she didn't say anything out loud. She gave the girl a cup of herbal tea, sweetened with a drop of wildflower honey, and told her to rest by the fire. While the girl was warming her hands, the queen went into the guest bedroom, the grandest room in the entire castle. This was the room where the most important visitors stayed, and the queen wanted it to be perfect. The queen took all the bedding off the bed. Every sheet, every blanket, and every pillow was moved aside. Then she reached into her pocket and took out a single, small, green pea. It was a tiny thing, no bigger than a ladybug, yet it looked like a polished emerald in the palm of her hand. She placed the pea right in the centre of the bedstead, on the hard wooden slats. Then the queen began to build the most magnificent bed you can imagine. She called for her servants, and they brought 20 thick mattresses filled with the softest wool from the mountain sheep. One by one, they piled the mattresses on top of the pea. But the queen was not finished yet. She then ordered 20 more beds. These were huge quilts made of the finest eiderdown. Feathers so light they were like trapped pieces of a cloud. They piled these 20 eiderdown beds on top of the mattresses. The bed grew higher and higher, until it was so tall that a ladder had to be brought in just to reach the top. The sheets were made of white silk, cool to the touch. and the blankets were woven from the finest cashmere, light and warm like a summer breeze. "There," the Queen whispered, smoothing out a tiny wrinkle in the silk. "Now we shall see if she is a real princess." The princess was led to the room. She looked at the towering mountain of mattresses and quilts, and her eyes widened in surprise. She had never seen a bed so tall or so soft. With the help of a small wooden ladder, she climbed up, step by step, until she reached the very top. She sank into the silk and the feathers. It felt like she was floating in a sea of clouds. The Queen tucked her in, kissing her forehead and wishing her a peaceful night. The candles were blown out, one by one, until the only light in the room was the soft, silver glow of the moon peeking through the heavy velvet curtains. The castle became very, very quiet. The only sound was the distant rhythm of the rain and the slow, steady ticking of the great clock in the hallway. But the princess could not sleep. She lay on her back and looked at the ceiling, but something felt wrong. She turned on her left side, pulling the cashmere blanket closer to her chin, but she couldn't get comfortable. She turned on her right side, nestling her head into the pile of pillows, but she felt a tiny, hard pressure. No matter how she moved or how she fluffed the eiderdown, she felt as if she were lying on a small, hard stone. "It's so strange," she thought to herself. "I am in the softest bed in the world, yet I feel something quite firm beneath me." She spent the whole night tossing and turning. She watched the moon move across the sky. She listened to the owls calling in the forest. She counted the stars she could see through the gap in the curtains. She was not angry, and she did not complain. She simply lay there, her delicate skin feeling every tiny vibration of the castle, and that one small, mysterious point of discomfort. As the first light of dawn began to turn the sky a soft, pale pink, she finally closed her eyes for just a moment. But the night had been very, very long. In the morning, the sun rose over the mountains, painting the castle towers in shades of gold and amber. The birds began to sing in the garden, a cheerful song to welcome the new day. The king, the queen, and the prince were all ready at the breakfast table, waiting for their guest. The table was set with silver bowls of porridge, fresh cream, and baskets of warm bread. Finally, the princess came down the stairs. She looked a little bit pale, and then there were soft shadows under her eyes, but she still looked as graceful as a swan. "Good morning," the Queen said, her eyes searching the girl's face. "Did you have a good night's rest? Was the bed comfortable?" The princess gave a small, tired smile. "Oh, it was a very beautiful room," she said politely. "But I must tell you, I scarcely closed my eyes all night. Heaven only knows what was in the bed. But I was lying on something hard, so that I am black and blue all over my body. It was quite miserable." The prince's heart leapt with joy. He looked at his mother, and the queen was smiling a wide, happy smile. Now they knew for certain that she was a real princess. Only a real princess could be so delicate and sensitive that she could feel a tiny pea through 20 mattresses and 20 eiderdown beds. No one but a true royal, with a spirit as fine as silk, could have such a gentle nature. The prince took her hand, and he knew right then that he had finally found the friend he had been searching for all over the world. He didn't need to see her crown or her kingdom. He had seen the truth in her gentle spirit. So the prince took the princess for his wife. It was a wedding like no other, filled with music that sounded like the wind in the trees, and flowers that smelled of summer honey. The whole kingdom celebrated, for they knew their future king and queen were people of great kindness and feeling. And what happened to the pea? The queen took it and placed it in the Royal Museum, where it can still be seen to this day, unless someone has taken it away. It sits on a small velvet cushion under a glass dome, reminding everyone that the smallest things can tell the biggest truths. The prince and his princess lived in the castle for many long and happy years. They filled the halls with laughter and ensured that every guest who came to their door was treated with the same warmth and care that the princess had received on that stormy night. The princess never forgot that night. Whenever she saw a small green pea in the garden, she would smile and remember that it was a little thing that brought her a big love. She learned that being a princess isn't about the gold you wear, but about the kindness you feel in your heart. And now, my little one, it is time for you to find your own soft bed. Your pillows are waiting, as light as eiderdown. Your blankets are warm, like a hug from the stars. Your eyes are very heavy now. Close them tight. Imagine you are in that silver castle, safe and sound, where every dream is as sweet as honey. Sleep well, little one. Good night. Sleep in the peace of the moonlight. The end. For more audiobooks for preschoolers or 3-year-olds, stay on our channel. Good night. Sleep well. Good night. Welcome to Grandma's Tales. I am so happy you are here with me, tucked in and ready for a journey to a land far, far away. Tonight, let me take you to the Far East, a land where the sun turns the endless sands into a sea of liquid gold. This is a gentle version of Aladdin's story, specially crafted to be safe and peaceful for your little one's bedtime. No scary moments, my dear, just the shimmer of magic, and a carpet that can fly among the stars. Take a deep breath. feel how heavy and relaxed your blankets feel. Let the warm desert wind carry you away into a peaceful sleep. In a distant kingdom, where the sky glows like a warm sunset, and the heat of the day stays in the old, sun-baked stones, lived a boy named Aladdin. This was a land of soft, golden sand dunes that moved like slow waves under a bright, friendly sun. The city where he lived rose from the sands like a beautiful dream. Its walls were white and clean, and its roofs were covered in tiles that shone like bright pearls in the morning light. Aladdin was a boy with a very kind heart. He lived with his mother in a small, tidy house at the very edge of the city, where the streets meet the endless, quiet desert. Aladdin wore simple clothes, soft and clean from many washings. He had a small vest the colour of a sunset, dark orange with a hint of gold thread at the seams. On his head he wore a little hat woven from straw to protect him from the warm sun. His eyes were dark and bright, always looking at the eagles soaring high above the tall, slender towers of the palace. He didn't have gold in his pockets, but his heart was as free as the desert wind. His mother loved him more than all the treasures in the world. She wore a soft, sky-blue shawl, and she kept their home smelling like sweet jasmine flowers and freshly baked bread. They didn't have much, but their home was filled with love and the sound of quiet laughter. Every evening they would sit on their small porch and watch the stars begin to twinkle over the dunes, feeling thankful for the peace of the desert night. One afternoon, as the shadows began to grow long and purple in the market, a traveller approached Aladdin. The man wore dark indigo silk robes that seemed to hold the colour of the deep ocean. Around his waist was a silver belt, and on his head was a tall turban with a single glowing green stone. He spoke to Aladdin in a voice that was low and smooth. He told him of a secret room hidden deep beneath the sands, a place where a magic lamp had been waiting for 100 years. Aladdin felt a little bit excited, but also very careful. The traveller promised that if Aladdin found the lamp, he would give him enough gold to buy his mother the finest silk clothes, and build her a garden where the roses never lost their petals and the water always ran cool. Saladin, wanting only to bring comfort to his mother, agreed to go. They travelled far into the desert, beyond the city gates, to a place where the mountains looked like big, silent shadows against the violet sky. The traveller whispered soft, old words to the ground. With a low, heavy sound, a hidden door made of shiny, dark stone opened in the sand. It showed a long staircase leading deep into the earth. Aladdin stopped for a moment at the top. The air coming from below was cool and smelled of old books and ancient dust. It was very quiet. He felt a little bit of fear, like a small bird fluttering in his chest. But then he thought of his mother's tired but kind smile, and he took a deep breath. He began to walk down, one step at a time, down into the quiet, peaceful belly of the world. At the bottom of the stairs, Aladdin found a room that took his breath away. It was a vast, silent hall where the walls were made of crystals that glowed with a soft, milky light, like the moon. The floor was made of smooth, white stone, shining like a mirror under his feet. In the center of this hall stood a forest of magic. There were trees made of solid silver, with leaves made of green emeralds that made a sound like tiny silver bells when he walked past. On the ground lay piles of white pearls as large as eggs, and gold coins that flowed over the floor like a frozen river of warm sunlight. It was a garden made of jewels, a place where the colours were so bright they seemed to hum a quiet song of their own. Aladdin walked slowly through this garden of jewels, being very careful not to trip. He saw a fountain where the water looked like blue sapphire, bubbling softly in the silence. He saw fruit hanging from silver branches, rubies as red as apples, and topazes as yellow as lemons. He wanted so much to pick up just one small gem for his mother, to see the light in her eyes when he brought it home. But he remembered the traveller's stern warning. Touch nothing but the old lamp. Aladdin was a boy of great discipline. He kept his hands tucked safely into his orange vest. He walked past the gold, past the silver, and past the sparkling stones. Finally, in the very centre of the hall, on a simple stone stand that looked very old, sat the lamp. It was not made of gold or covered in jewels. It was a small, humble lamp made of copper, and it was covered in a thick layer of grey dust. It looked lonely there, like an old friend who had been forgotten for a very long time. Aladdin picked it up gently. It felt cool and solid in his hand. He felt a sudden warm love for the little object. It didn't belong in this cold, jewelled prison. It belonged in a home where people talked and laughed. He tucked the lamp into his belt and turned to leave. But as he turned, his eyes caught a shimmer of movement in a dark corner of the room. Tucked behind a pile of soft velvet cushions was a rug. But it was not an ordinary rug. It was woven from the finest silk, with a background of deep midnight blue that seemed to hold the stars of the night sky. The borders were decorated with golden threads in the shape of suns and moons. As Aladdin stepped closer, the rug began to twitch. It unrolled itself with a soft, rhythmic sound, stretching its fibres like a cat waking up from a long nap. Aladdin knelt down and touched the fabric. It was as soft as a cloud and felt strangely warm and alive. The rug nudged his hand gently, and Aladdin let out a small, amazed laugh. "A magic carpet," he whispered into the quiet room. The carpet hovered a few inches off the ground, inviting him to sit. Aladdin felt a wave of peace. He wasn't alone in the dark anymore. He had found a new friend. When Aladdin reached the cave entrance, holding the lamp tightly, the traveller's face changed. The man's eyes were no longer kind. They were bright with greed, like a cat watching a mouse. He demanded the lamp before helping Aladdin out of the dark hole. But Aladdin, sensing a coldness in the man's voice, refused to give it up until his feet were safe on the warm sand. In a fit of anger, the traveller slammed the heavy stone door shut. Thud. The world went black. Aladdin was trapped in total darkness. He sat on the magic carpet, clutching the copper lamp to his chest. He felt the cold air of the cave, and a sense of loneliness started to creep into his heart. "I'm sorry, little lamp," he whispered into the silence. "I tried my best to take you home." He took his soft linen sleeve and began to rub the lamp gently, hoping to at least make it shine a little bit in the dark. Suddenly, a brilliant, soft blue light filled the room. It didn't burn his eyes. It was refreshing and calm, like the first light of a beautiful summer morning. Out of a shimmering blue mist stepped the genie. He was a magnificent being, with skin the colour of a clear sky and a beard as white as a mountain peak. He wore golden bands around his wrists and had a smile that felt like a warm fire on a cold night. "I am the spirit of the lamp," he said, his voice deep and slow, like a cello playing a peaceful song. "You have a heart of gold, Aladdin. You showed that kindness and honesty are more valuable than all the emeralds in this cave. Tell me, little one, what is the first wish of your soul?" Aladdin didn't hesitate for even a second. He didn't ask for a crown of jewels or a palace made of silver. He looked at the genie and thought of his dry, thirsty city above. He thought of the tired mothers and the children who had no green grass to play on. "I wish for the wells of my city to be full of sweet, cool water," he said softly, "and for the gardens to be green and full of fruit forever, so no one ever goes hungry again." The genie's eyes twinkled with pure joy. "A wish for others is the greatest magic of all," he replied. With a slow snap of his fingers, a wave of silver light surged upward, passing through the heavy stone and into the world above. Then the genie gestured to the magic carpet. "Now, let us take you home to your mother." The magic carpet whisked Aladdin through the dark stone door, which vanished like a puff of smoke at the genie's command. They soared into the desert night, and the flight was the most beautiful thing Aladdin had ever seen. The air was cool and smelled of night-blooming flowers. Below them, the sand dunes were no longer harsh or hot. They looked like silver waves sleeping under a massive glowing moon. The carpet moved with incredible grace, responding to Aladdin's every breath. It dipped and rose, gliding between the stars like a silent bird. Aladdin felt a wild, soaring joy in his heart. He looked at the vast, silent desert and realized that he was a part of a big, wonderful world. The stars seemed so close he could almost reach out and put one in his pocket. He leaned back against the soft silk of the carpet and felt completely safe. When they arrived at his mother's garden, the change was already visible. The dry, dusty ground was now covered in soft green grass that felt like a fresh blanket. A fountain of clear, sparkling water bubbled in the center of the courtyard, making a sound like soft laughter. The trees were heavy with purple figs, sweet dates, and red pomegranates. His mother was standing by the fountain, her blue shawl flowing in the gentle night breeze. When she saw her son descending from the sky on a starlit rug, she let out a cry of pure happiness. Aladdin ran to her, and they shared a long, silent hug under the light of the moon. He told her everything: the cave, the silver trees, and the wonderful new friends he had made. Aladdin's mother was amazed by the lamp and the carpet, but she was most proud of her son's heart. "You have brought more than just water and fruit to this city, Aladdin," she said softly, stroking his hair. "You have brought hope." The genie stayed with them, often appearing in a smaller, more human size, to help Aladdin's mother in the kitchen, or to tell stories of the old world while they sat together on the roof. The magic carpet became the family's favorite place to rest. During the day, it lay in the warm sun, soaking up the heat, and at night it would gently lift Aladdin and his mother above the rooftops to watch the city sleep in peace. It was a life of simple wonders, where every day felt like a gift. The city changed completely. The white marble domes now stood among lush parks and flowing rivers of clear water. People were happier, and their voices in the market were full of laughter instead of worry. Aladdin became a guardian of the city, not with a sword or a shield, but with a kind and listening heart. He used the genie's magic only to help those who were in need. He still wore his simple linen tunic and his sunset orange vest, for he didn't want to forget who he was. He understood that the real treasure was the peace in his mother's eyes and the ability to make his neighbors smile. He spent his days teaching the children how to care for the new gardens, showing them that a seed and a little bit of water could grow into something magnificent. One evening, as the sky turned a deep, dusty purple, the genie and Aladdin sat together by the fountain. The genie looked at the peaceful city and told Aladdin that he had taught him something very important. "I have served many masters over thousands of years," the genie said, his voice as soft as the evening wind. "But most people only wanted to take. You are the first who wanted to give. That, Aladdin, is the true secret of the lamp." Aladdin smiled and looked at the copper lamp sitting on the stone edge of the fountain. It was no longer dusty. It shone with a soft, comforting blue light, reflecting the stars above. He realized that the lamp was like a mirror, showing the goodness inside his own soul. The years went by, and the story of the boy from the edge of the desert became a legend. It was told in every home, a story that reminded children that being curious is a gift, and being kind is the strongest magic of all. Aladdin and his mother lived in a world of peace, where every sunset was a golden blessing. Your eyes are closing now, little one. The world is quiet and safe. Imagine you are floating on a soft blue carpet, high among the friendly stars. Your breath is slow, and your dreams are full of golden sands and magic lamps. Sleep well. Good night. Sleep in the light of the moon. The end. For more audiobooks for preschoolers or 3-year-olds, stay on our channel. Good night. Welcome to Grandma's Tales. Take a moment to settle deep into your bed. Imagine you are lying on a patch of soft green moss, deep in the heart of a quiet, magical forest. The air is cool and smells of pine needles and wild flowers. Tonight, we are going to follow the story of a little deer named Silas. This is a story about the beauty of the woods, the friendship between all living things, and the quiet wisdom of nature. There is nothing to fear here, only the gentle rustle of leaves and the soft light of the sun. Close your eyes. Breathe in the forest air. Let the journey begin. In the very heart of the forest, where the sunlight filters through the leaves like strings of liquid gold, a new life had begun. It was early morning, and the dew sat on the ferns like tiny glass beads. Deep within a hidden thicket of briars and soft ferns, a little fawn was born. His mother, a doe with soft, watchful eyes, licked him clean and nudged him gently. He was very small, with bright, curious eyes, and a coat of reddish-brown fur covered in tiny white spots that looked like fallen petals from a daisy. His mother whispered, her voice as soft as the summer wind. "Your name is Silas?" The forest seemed to acknowledge the news. A magpie fluttered down to a nearby branch. A squirrel paused in its search for acorns, and even the old oak tree seemed to lean in to greet the new prince of the woods. Silas tried to stand on his long, spindly legs. They were a bit wobbly at first, like a new blade of grass in the wind. He stumbled and fell back into the soft leaves, but he didn't mind. The floor of the woods was warm and smelled of rich earth. He tried again, and this time he stayed up. He looked around at his new world. He saw the green light of the forest canopy high above, and the colourful butterflies that danced between the foxgloves. Everything was a marvel. The sound of a distant brook was like a song meant just for him. His mother watched him with a proud, gentle smile. She knew that the forest would be his home, his teacher, and his protector. They sat together in the quiet shade, feeling the peace of the morning settle over them like a soft blanket. Silas closed his eyes for a moment, listening to the heartbeat of the woods. As the days went by, Silas grew stronger and more curious. He learned that the forest was filled with friends. One morning, as they walked through a sunlit clearing, he met a small rabbit with a twitching pink nose and big fluffy paws. This was Puck. Puck showed Silas how to hop over fallen logs and how to find the sweetest clover hidden under the leaves. "Everything in the forest has a name," Puck said with a happy wiggle of his ears. Silas learned the names of the birds, the different types of moss, and the way the wind sounded when it moved through the pine trees. It was a world of constant discovery. They spent the afternoon chasing shadows and watching the dragonflies zip over the pond. The water was so clear, Silas could see the pebbles at the bottom, glowing like hidden jewels. The forest felt very safe and vast. Mother taught him how to listen to the different sounds of the woods. She taught him that a rustle in the grass was often just a friendly hedgehog, and that the call of the blue jay was a way of saying hello. They walked along paths that were padded with years of soft pine needles, making their footsteps silent. The light in the forest changed throughout the day. In the morning, it was bright and yellow. In the afternoon, it turned into a deep, warm amber. And in the evening, it became a soft, dusty purple. Silas loved the golden hour most of all. It was the time when the forest felt most magical, when the glowing dust particles danced in the air and the flowers began to close their petals for the night. He felt a deep connection to every tree and every blade of grass. One day, his mother took him to a place he had never seen before, the great meadow. This was a wide, open space where the trees stepped back to let the sky reach all the way down to the ground. Silas stood at the edge of the trees, feeling the soft breeze on his face. The meadow was a sea of tall grass and wild flowers, red poppies, blue cornflowers, and yellow buttercups. It looked like a giant, colourful carpet spread out under the sun. His mother told him to be careful and quiet, but she also showed him the joy of the open space. He leaped into the air, his hooves barely touching the ground. He felt the sun warming his back and the cool grass tickling his belly. It was a feeling of pure freedom. He met other deer there too. He met a young doe named Celia, who had eyes as bright as stars and a laugh that sounded like a tinkling bell. They played tag in the tall grass, weaving between the stalks until they were both breathless and happy. While they played, the great prince of the forest appeared. He was a magnificent stag, with antlers that looked like the branches of an ancient tree. He stood on a high rock, looking out over the meadow with great wisdom and calm. Everyone stopped and looked at him with respect. He didn't say a word, but his presence felt like a protective shield over the entire forest. Silas. He looked at him and felt a sense of awe. He realized that one day he too would be a guardian of this beautiful land. The prince looked down and gave a slow, knowing nod. It was a silent promise of strength and peace. As the sun began to set, casting long orange shadows across the meadow, his mother called him back to the safety of the trees. They walked home slowly, feeling the cool evening air on their skin. Silas was tired, but his heart was full of the wonders he had seen. He knew that the meadow was a place of meeting and joy, a heart at the center of the woods. The seasons in the forest began to change, like the turning of a great golden book. Autumn arrived, and the green leaves turned into shades of crimson, orange, and gold. The air became crisp and smelled of dry wood and wood smoke. Silas loved to walk through the fallen leaves, listening to the crunch, crunch sound they made under his hooves. It was a time of preparation. The squirrels were busy gathering nuts, and the birds were practicing their songs for their long flights. The forest felt cozy and settled. Then, one morning, Silas woke up to find the world had turned white. Snow! It lay on the branches like thick white frosting and covered the ground in a soft, cold blanket. Silas stepped out and was surprised to find his hooves sinking into the fluff. It was quiet, even quieter than usual. The snow muffled every sound, making the woods feel like a peaceful, sleeping giant. His mother showed him how to find food even in the winter. They found green bark on the trees and sweet grass hidden deep under the snow. It was a time of slowing down. They spent more time huddling together for warmth in their thicket, listening to the wind whistle through the bare branches. Silas felt very close to his mother during these long, quiet days. He learned that even when the world looks cold and still, life is just resting, waiting for the right moment to bloom again. He felt a deep patience growing inside him. One evening, they sat under a pine tree while the snowflakes drifted down like tiny feathers. Everything was silver and blue in the moonlight. "The winter is a time for dreaming," his mother said softly. And Silas did dream. He dreamed of the green leaves and the warm sun, knowing that they would always return. He felt safe, warm, and loved. Finally, the air began to soften. The snow melted into tiny, rushing streams that sang songs of joy as they ran over the stones. Small green shoots began to poke their heads through the dark earth. Spring had returned. The forest was waking up, and it was louder and more colourful than ever. The birds were building nests in the budding trees, and the flowers were opening their eyes to the sun. Silas was no longer a little fawn. He had grown taller and stronger. Small, velvet-covered bumps were appearing on his head, his first antlers. He felt a new energy in his legs. He spent his days exploring further and further, always returning to tell his mother about the new wonders he had found. He found a hidden waterfall where the water sparkled like liquid diamonds, and a cave where the walls were covered in soft, glowing moss. He met Celia again in the meadow. She had grown too, and her grace was even more beautiful than before. They walked together through the woods, sharing stories and quiet moments. They watched the sunset from the high ridge, seeing the whole forest spread out beneath them like a green sea. Silas realized that his role in the forest was changing. He was no longer just a listener. He was becoming a part of the forest's song. He felt a responsibility to protect the smaller creatures and to keep the peace of the woods. One evening, the great prince appeared to him again. This time, he spoke. "You have learned well," the prince said, his voice like the rustle of ancient leaves. "You have a heart that understands the rhythm of the woods. You are ready." Silas felt a surge of quiet pride and gratitude. He looked at the forest, his home, and felt a deep, happy end in his soul. Everything was as it should be. Silas became a guardian of the forest. He lived a long and peaceful life, watching over the thickets and the meadows. He and Feline had their own fawns, and he taught them the same lessons his mother had taught him. He taught them to listen to the wind, to respect the smallest beetle, and to always look for the magic in the golden hour. The forest remained a place of sanctuary and beauty. No harm ever came to their hidden home, for the spirit of the woods protected those who lived in harmony with it. Silas would often stand on the high rock, just as the great prince had done, looking out over his kingdom with a heart full of love. He knew that the life of the woods would go on forever, a cycle of growth, rest, and rebirth. Silas learned that the greatest power in the world is the power of a peaceful heart. He learned that we are all connected, from the tallest oak to the smallest blade of grass. And now, my little one, it is time for you to rest your head. Imagine you are tucked into that soft thicket of ferns, with the smell of pine and the sound of a distant brook. The forest is watching over you. The stars are twinkling through the leaves. Your breath is slow and deep. Close your eyes. Dream of golden forests and gentle deer, and a world that is always kind. Sleep well, little one. Good night. Sleep in the peace of the woods. The end. For more audiobooks for preschoolers or 3-year-olds, stay on our channel. Good night. Sleep well. Good night.